Before you buy Code of the Duelist, this is a video you're definitely gonna wanna watch. What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I wanted to bring to you a discussion about Code of the Duelist. Now, Code of the Duelist at the time of releasing this video is going to be coming out at the end of the week. And last week I made a video that was my top 5 cards from Code of the Duelist. And something really odd happened to me while I was creating that video. What happened was, typically when I make a top 5 video for cards of a specific set, because that's something I very commonly do on this channel, what happened was, I actually was very much struggling with which cards I was going to put on that list, because as I was looking through the certain cards that were, available in the set seemed incredibly lackluster, and it was actually very difficult for me to come up with, a solidified top 5 because of just the poor card quality that seems to be in Code of the Duelist. And those were really the best cards, and frankly the only good cards, at least in my eyes, that I saw that were of, really good value in this upcoming set. So what I really wanted to do was, I wanted to explain my reasoning for why I believe Code of the Duelist is a bad set. Now, you might not agree with me because this is purely my opinion, but at the very least, just take a listen to what I have to hear, and at the end, if you still disagree with me and you still think Code of the Duelist is a really good set, that's totally fine. I just really want to pretty much interject my opinion out there and let you guys just kind of have contrasting opinions, because maybe if you were considering buying the set, by the end of this video you might change your mind, or at the very least, at least what I would hope for, you're gonna wait till the prices of the cards decline in value. So the biggest comparison that I want to do here with Code of the Duelist is when we got the introduction of the pendulum summoning mechanic. That's a pretty fair comparison, because usually when we get a new summoning mechanic, we get a new base set that kind of sets the tone for, the years to come for the rest of the set. And so in this instance, I want to point you guys towards Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance was the first set to introduce pendulum monsters into the game. We got stuff like Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, and we got a couple other pendulum monsters as well, but we didn't really get, a really solidified pendulum archetype until a little bit later. But Duelist Alliance, by comparison to Code of the Duelist, was absolutely insane. A lot of people would argue that Duelist Alliance was actually one of the best sets ever printed because of what was included in the set. I want to start by talking about the archetypes. You look at the archetypes that were printed in Duelist Alliance. There were Satellar Knights, Shaddolls, Burning Abyss, Yang Zing. These are all archetypes that have seen a fair amount of competitive play, some for several years, and some are still seeing play today. Hell, you're seeing Yang Zings being splashed in True King Dinosaurs, as well as Zephyra for the time being. And Burning Abyss lasted an eternity. Shaddolls had a really good run as well until, Construct got banned and just nuked into oblivion. But we had some incredibly powerful archetypes. Whether you were a casual or competitive player, these archetypes were very appealing and very powerful at that. Now you look at Code of the Duelist, we've got stuff like World Chalice, and we've got Trick Stars, and, it just, by comparison, the archetypes don't nearly seem as, appealing to both the casual and the competitive crowd. And I feel that's what made Duelist Alliance such a really cool set in that respect. Now, another thing that Duelist Alliance had was these generic cards that were incredibly powerful, because let's say you weren't excited about the new archetypes, but let's be real, a lot of us were, because you had the chance of pulling stuff like Ultimate Rare Construct, you could get an Ultra Rare Construct, Secret Rare, Deltaros, Secret Rare Dante, Ultra Rare Satellar, and it's like there were so many just insane cards you could pull out of this set, but then you also had the generic cards that Duelist Alliance contained as well, cards like Castel, the Sky Blaster Musketeer, Magical Spring, Time Space Trap Hole, Felice, I believe, was in there as well. These were some other cards that if you weren't really looking at the new archetypes, even though the ban list pretty much kind of made it so that these were the new archetypes to look forward to, these were cards that you could get excited about. Castell would be a staple rank 4 to years to come. Magical Spring would become a side deck card in several formats, as well as Time Space Trap Hole, sometimes main decked in some cases with Time Space Trap Hole. And Felice was essentially another 3 copies of Wolf for Light Sworn players. I think that was so cool. Now in this respect, Code of the Duelist does have some good generic cards. You've got stuff like Spellbook of Knowledge, which is like semi-generic. I mean, it kind of falls in the same category as Felice at that point. But then you've got stuff like Heavy Storm Duster, Return to the Front, all these other cards, but again, it doesn't really have the same impact that these cards did. These are cards like Castell and Time Space. These are cards that saw so much play, but again, the Code of the Duelist cards I feel like aren't up to par in the same fashion. Now, to be fair, then there was also the Pendulum Monsters themselves. Now, the first set for Pendulum Monsters wasn't really, you know, explosive by any means. And the same can be said about Code of the Duelist. You know, we have a ton of Link Monsters, way more Link Monsters than Pendulum Monsters than Duelist Alliance had by comparison, but again, Pendulums didn't really take off until the following set, which is when Qliphort came out. But then Qliphort, on its release, immediately became a Tier 1 deck and became relevant in the meta. But in the case of the Link Monsters here, with what we currently have, as well as what's going to be released in Circuit Break, because we kind of have some spoilers of Circuit Break thanks to Japan, these cards aren't really going to be doing a whole lot, at least from a competitive standpoint. We've seen that in the OCG just by looking ahead, that the Trickstars, the World Chalice, all these archetypes that are contained in Code of the Duelist, they don't really have much, you know, competitive playability. Now, Trickstars are kind of on the fringe there because they have seen some very, very minor success, but compared to all of the other archetypes at our disposal, there still isn't really nearly the impact that Code of the Duelist is going to have in this format than Duelist Alliance did back in the past. And even when Circuit Break comes out, I don't genuinely feel that's going to change. The only reservation there is we are getting like the Spiral Link monsters, so that might be like the Qliphort if you want to kind of call it that, but there might be some other TCG exclusives that we might get that haven't been revealed yet that might completely change that line of thinking. But again, looking at the OCG, the archetypes have done absolutely nothing on the competitive level. And I know not everyone is a competitive player, but I feel that when you're releasing a new core set for a new summoning mechanic, that's really the best way to encapsulate and grab both sides of the audience, your casual and your competitive players, by making good, strong archetypes that both casual players are going to like and competitive players are going to love to play because they're going to be solid Tier 1, if not Tier 1.5 or Tier 2 decks. And I feel like Duelist Alliance did that so well by comparison. Maybe it was a lot for Code of the Duelist to live up to, but I feel like it's just not nearly doing it in the same way that Duelist Alliance did. Now, one other topic I wanted to discuss in regards to this is that Code of the Duelist does not have any chase cards. And what I mean by chase cards is you can look at sets like the Dark Illusion. Dark Illusion had Pot of Desires as well as Cosmic Cyclone to a minor extent. It was an expensive card at the time of its release, but it kind of, you know, went down a little bit, but then also spiked because it was only had one printing. Then you look at something like Invasion Vengeance. Now, Invasion Vengeance wasn't, you know, the most amazing set either, but it had Dimensional Barrier, and by having Dimensional Barrier, it created a lot of demand for the deck, and a lot of players wanted to open the set because Dimensional Barrier was an incredibly powerful card. Look at Maximum Crisis. Maximum Crisis, you know, does have the True Dracos and stuff as well, so to be fair, there is a little bit extra there, but the only really two cards of insane value were Dragonic Diagram and Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, but that was enough for players to be clamoring over the set because these cards were incredibly powerful. Code of the Duelist does not really have that, and it's a little bit disappointing, you know, from both casual and competitive players' standpoints. From the casual standpoint, it's unfortunate because there's no like lottery ticket card in this set that if you open it and pull it, you're just gonna lose your fucking mind, and it's like you hit the jackpot. And from a competitive player's standpoint, sometimes just having a couple chase cards in the set is really what can pull the competitive base to a set and get them excited moving forward into, you know, an entire new era of the game. But I feel like Code of the Duelist really missed an opportunity here to kind of capture both of those audiences. Right now, the most expensive card in the set, and this is at sneak peek still because the set hasn't officially been released, is Firewall Dragon. But Firewall Dragon is a very, very volatile card for a few reasons. First of all, because it's a main protagonist monster staple from the new anime, this card's going to be reprinted into oblivion. We've seen it with Stardust Dragon, we've seen it with Utopia, we've seen it with Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. These cards have so many incarnations that the value, other than like the ghost rare versions of these cards, has just plummeted into nothing. And the same exact thing is going to eventually happen with Firewall Dragon. The other problem with Firewall Dragon is that Firewall Dragon does not really have any good application in the current game. Yeah, sure, you can do some crazy shenanigans like with Extra Link with some of the new Link monsters, but frankly, other than just really doing shenanigans like that, that isn't a viable competitive strategy. Sure, you might have a couple people at locals trying it out just to see if they can pull it off against you, but the thing is, even if someone pulls the Extra Link off against you utilizing the Firewall Dragons, a lot of decks now don't need to utilize the extra deck to function, and they can play the game just fine without it. And that's kind of how the player base has shifted their mentality, that rather than play with links, they're just going to play really strong decks that don't need to use the extra deck whatsoever, or can utilize it as a toolbox to kind of extend their plays in as minor ways as possible without being reliant on the mechanic itself. So ultimately, this is kind of the video I just wanted to make for you guys, just to kind of share my thoughts with why I believe that Code of the Duelist is not really that good of a set. I can't in good conscience really tell you guys to go out and purchase this set knowing all of this, and really, you know, the top 5 cards that I did, those are still really powerful cards, and if you have the ability to pick those up, I'd highly recommend it. But if you don't agree with me, at the very least, if you want to purchase this set, just wait until a few weeks after its release, because the prices of the cards are going to plummet dramatically, because there isn't really anything that people are chasing after, apart from maybe something like Firewall Dragon, purely because of its existence as being the protagonist, you know, main anime monster. But other than that, the prices that you see now, they're just gonna tank dramatically, and if you wait even until the unlimited printing of this set, the prices are going to fall even more, and not only will you be able to get the cards that you want, but you'll be able to get them for an insanely cheap value. One thing I want to end on as well is that, you know, in the future, the set following Circuit Break, who knows, maybe World Chalice or maybe Trickstars are going to get some fucking crazy broken support. It's happened before, and as we all know, it only takes 1 or 2 cards to really make an archetype just go over the top and make it a tier 1 competitive deck. It's very possible, but at the very least, guys, I just want to tell you that right now, just save your money and hold on to it for the time being, and at the very least, you'll be able to pick up some awesome cards for a very low value. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked the video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.